Hello everyone, this is Food is a Conversation, Alumni Edition. Today is session 14, if I'm not mistaken, and my guest is dialing in from New York. And so these conversations are happening twice a week, and we have one on Tuesday evenings, like this one now, and the other one happens on Thursday mornings. On this way, we are able to cover all of the time zones. Now I am trying to connect with our guest. Let me just everyone to ask questions. So what is the conversation about? These people who we host in the alumni attended. Hi, Zack.
Hi, Julia.
Perfect. I can hear you. Connection is up. So I just quickly finish the intro and then we can jump right in. So basically, we introduce all of the people who attended educational programs organized by the Future Food Institute. This could be the Food Innovation Master Program or summer schools or the boot camps, what they started to organize together with FAO since last year. And we are actually about to launch our digital boot camp, so stay tuned. So as I said, please post your questions. And now I will just give the stage to Zack, and he will talk a bit about himself, his connection to future food, and how his local food system is, and how his journey changed since we actually graduated together in 2018. So thanks, Zack, for joining. Please tell a tiny bit about yourself.
Hey, Julia. Thanks for having me. I was a colleague of yours in the Food Innovation Program Masters almost 2 years ago now. Wow.
Yes.
Since then, I have moved back to the US and New York, where now I'm a freelance consultant for food and beverage companies who are designing new products or looking to create solutions to some of the major issues that our food system is currently facing. And I think we have seen in 2020 how many areas need to be addressed in the food system. And yeah, happy to be having a great conversation with people who care so much uh, about a sustainable, equitable, fair.
Great, thank you.
Are on that bandwagon.
Great. So let's start from the beginning of your relationship to the Future Food Institute. What made you apply for the Food Innovation Program, which is a 12-month master program? We were based in Reggio Emilia, for those who don't know.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to be a student of Matteo Vignoli while I was attending a master's in business administration program in Bologna in Italy. And when he was, I think, my professor of innovation, which is very fitting. And when he was explaining to myself and my classmates that this program existed, Food Innovation Program, in which they were both learning and going to learn from other areas around the world. I thought it was a pretty unique and remarkable opportunity to see all angles of the food system. And it's fairly difficult to be able to immerse yourself in all the areas of the food system when you stay in one area. So I was pretty shocked that such a program existed, and at the same time as surprised that I hadn't thought that something like that could. And I think probably requires a little bit of the ingenuity of the people behind the program, like Sarah Roversi, to be able to pull off something like this. And so once I got to meet Sarah, continue the relationship with Matteo, I was pretty enthusiastic about a program that I thought could make a a difference in the world, in the food system. And my background has been the restaurant industry. And the reason I went into the MBA program in the first place was to be able to create more ways of creating real change beyond the physical limitations of the restaurant space that I ran. And the MBA program helped start that process. But I think that the insight that I got from the food innovation program, the professors there, examples from Sarah and Matteo, and then being embedded in so many different locations, so many companies, so many collaborative efforts around the world, gave me a great sense of responsibility, and I'm pretty enthusiastic that I've been able to continue learning through that process and afterwards. One of the greatest things about learning is you learn very quickly how little you know and how much you continue to educate yourself and constantly be working through that process. And
yeah, that's so true. And so you mentioned that you came from the restaurant industry. So here I actually would like you to talk about 50. The restaurant, actually restaurants, right? Because you had 2 locations in Croatia. So how did you come up with the concept? What is your connection to Croatia, and how did that business evolve?
Yeah, so in 2012, I was living with my girlfriend and 2 chefs at the time. After graduating from college and working primarily in the media industry, I wanted to take the opportunity to travel, particularly around Europe, in order to be able to learn a lot more about the food industry. So the first destination was France, and I spent myself and 3 colleagues spent a fair amount of time traveling in France to be able to work in various areas of the food sector. Starting off, and I did a butcher shop in Paris, worked on vineyards in Lyon, and started to aggregate a little bit of knowledge slowly about the food system, and developed a little bit of a passion for the wine industry in particular while I was in Italy, or France. And after the end of the season there, I was picking grapes, trimming vines in a place outside of Lyon, and I was looking for the next experience that would enable me to learn a bit more about the industry. And the people that I was working with at the time referred me to these people that I would later go to work for in Dalmatia, the southern coastal area of Croatia. And so I drove from Lyon all the way across Italy and down the coast of Croatia. Fairly epically long, but incredibly interesting journey to eventually land in Split. And from there, I bounced between Split and a little that called Hvar, where I worked on a vineyard called Zlatan Plavic. And during that summer, I was staying at a hostel. And while I was staying at the hostel, I started cooking food at nights for the people that I found, my friends. And those dinners sort of organically became more consistent. Moved into something, became a pop-up where I would cook a menu of 3 dishes each. It started off on 1 week, moved into every night, and we started charging for it. And it started developing a little bit of a momentum. And through that process, I realized that uh, there was a need at the time for fast casual food, for people to be able to be outside, to get good food that they could continue uh, to live this vacation, as opposed to just sitting down for a very lengthy meal and then returning to home. And so I ran it there for about 5 years with so then we moved in this, I believe it was the summer of 2013. We found a space for the next year to visit the location. And my 2 chef friends, my girlfriend and myself, set up shop in this little 50 square meter space.
So that's how the name comes.
Well, the name actually set it for, it has had a journey of its own. We originally set the name for 50 kuna, which is the approximately at the time a little under 10 euros, because we thought it was important to provide affordable but high quality food. Since then, we've had to adjust our prices, but the 50 still signifies something meaningful for us now, which is our bringing the 50 states of the U.S. And combining it with local cuisines in a way that's respectful of the local cuisine, but shows our experience as American trained primarily. And so after 2 summers in Hvar, we started looking for a year-round space. And we eventually found one in Zagreb, where we have been continuing to do business to this day. And as with everyone else, we've had to change our operations during COVID. And we're, I think everyone right now is still figuring out how to handle everything. And I'm incredibly appreciative of the team that we have at 50, that I'm able to be constantly learning and away from the business while it's being managed by my partners who are on the ground doing the hard work to make sure that that business continues and our considerations of ethical sustainability continue to be kept at the front.
I think it's priceless to have such an experience wherein, because obviously we learned a lot about the food system, but being involved in such a business who has to go through a seasonal location and then go to an all year round location, and then facing these challenges, finding the demand for the products what you deliver, and then matching it with the values what you want to provide, I think it's actually priceless, and definitely can help you in your freelance work as well. So if you remember back a bit, we researched together Agro-Innovations and Smart Cities, and it has been published in a shape of a book as part of a book series called Food Shapers. And that was pretty much a learning experience, and the whole program in terms of getting inspired, finding those human problems, what we want to find solutions for. So if we add up all these ingredients, how do you see them contributing to your day-to-day work right now? And what are the insights what you could share with us from your recent work?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that that research and work we did to put into that Smart Cities and Agro-Innovations, what eventually became a book. So much of what I do in my day-to-day consulting now in New York is based on urban food systems, and most of the people that I work with are primarily combating urban problems.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that there are not many food system related issues that need to be resolved in rural or non-urban areas. But as we learned through our research, the world in general has been moving in a more and more urban direction. And that required then and requires now a different food system to support it. So the insights on how to manage the logistics, for example, of getting fresh produce into an urban environment, particularly challenging one, as we saw, and requires a non out of the box solution, but one that's really adapted to the individual environment. And so we saw from Toronto to Spain a very different approach, and I'm able to see the common needs between different cities and what I'm seeing here in New York. Not all are the same. However, particularly when it comes to logistics, particularly when it comes to concerns around food equality and how to manage food, how to manage injustice through the food system, those have been particularly pertinent and helpful when applying them into my work in the New York area. And I think it's an ongoing thing. Oh, broke up a little bit, but
All right. Okay. So you are back. Okay.
yeah, but what I've seen in New York and everywhere else is urban environments are changing so rapidly and will always be changing so rapidly by their nature. Right now, I think we might be in a period where the urbanization is maybe a little bit on pause. The trend we're seeing when we were doing the research about the world moving overwhelmingly towards urbanization, I think we're in a little bit of a pause period because there's an increased threat to people's health and livelihood by being in a city, while there's a contagious novel virus. So there's been this whole new consideration of approaches, best practices that have to be applied to New York. But the same mentality that we worked through on how do systems stay resilient within within urban food systems so that they can respond to crisis. I think those lessons are more relevant now than ever, and have play over and over again in my work here.
Yeah, I just remembered one of the places we visited during the global mission close to San Francisco, the Series community project. I think they had also already before a plan, a strategy how to feed their community during disasters. I'm not remembering well if it was forest fires or what disaster was very common or regularly happening in the area. Maybe
I think that the wildfires in California, exactly. And so my father's Australian, and he runs a farm in Australia, and we've been able to see similar issues that arise when these forest fires occur. And it does seem that they are occurring more frequently and will be occurring more frequently as a result of global climate change. Series was a particularly good example, I think, of creating an infrastructure to quickly mobilize in disaster relief. And I think they were also doing something particularly interesting in another regard, which is they were focusing on the preventative health aspect of food, how food nutrition can preemptively and in the moment combat disease and actually reduce the overall financial and other burden placed on healthcare systems, on insurers, by simply keeping people healthy out of hospital and mitigating the effects of chronic diseases like obesity and diabetes, which I think COVID has opened up a lot of people's eyes to how important those things are, and how important it is to continually invest in preventative healthcare through nutrition and food.
Definitely. I mean, the two industries have to come closer together, meaning healthcare and insurance providers with the food industry. And actually, for one of my recent researches, I found an initiative. I think it started in Brooklyn. It's called Farm Box Direct. And she has now with one of the insurance providers a deal, which is called Farm Box RX, wherein the insurance company is providing these organic vegetable boxes based on the profile of their clients, mainly to elderly. So this is one of the examples what I think should be followed, definitely. So if we think about access to food and procurement and the divide between rural and urban environments, what I have experienced over the last few weeks, still you sometimes have, although the urban environment is disconnected from the food origin, you still have a bigger access or bigger offer to choose from when you are searching for your weekly food. So how did your consumption or consumption and procurement behavior changed over the last few weeks, months?
So I think, like many people in the US, I've changed my purchasing patterns to a more weekly orientation as opposed to maybe every 3 days or as needed for a particular recipe I'm trying to cook. So that's one aspect. Another is moving towards online ordering as opposed to in store. And I've had mixed experiences with that. I think most people who really love food still love the experience of procuring it, whether or not from the farmer or even from the grocery store. We enjoy interacting with food, and I think that's something fundamental to who we are as humans, not something that's going to be changed by the convenience movement or by fears around safety due to coronavirus or contamination through things like E. coli, which have happened repeatedly in the U.S. Another area that I think my own behavior has changed, and I've seen this with other people that I speak with as well, is that people are becoming a little bit more conscious of food waste. And personally, I've become much more aware of the need to consider the implications of eating meat. When you have a situation like we have had in the US, where you have had animals being slaughtered that end up being carcasses, discarded, that never make it to a consumer, it makes you question whether or not our desire, our need for meat warrants the potential for that sort of waste in the form of animal lives. I haven't in the past been a particularly ardent supporter of animal activism. I think it's a very important issue, but it hasn't been as much of a priority of mine as it is now. And it is a little unfortunate for myself, and that it required an eye-opening moment of seeing animal unnecessarily, without providing a product that ends up helping people. That steak never making it to the table, those eggs never making it to the consumer. It's unfortunate that it requires, that change sometimes requires such shock, but I'm glad that I have been in a privileged enough position to be able to continually have access to fresh vegetables and fresh produce. And I have been trying to learn new recipes to use that. I've noticed some of my cooking techniques have been very protein based in the past, and so it requires learning a new skill set in order to better cultivate that product. So it's forced not just a behavior change from a consumption standpoint, but from a cooking standpoint as well. And all of it requires constant focus on learning new skills. So I think I will always be, I'll be a perennial student. And I'm enjoying the process of learning a new skill set in the cooking arena right now.
Nice. I did the same. Well, I think it has also something to do with the fact that I didn't have access to anything else. So it was better if I did it myself. But yeah, the last few weeks, and I think the very important point, what you also said, and I think other people should also consider as the first step in general in their cooking, not necessarily to shop for recipes, shop the ingredients and then figure out what you can cook from that. So as a final question, like a closing line, if you could, in one sentence, describe your preferred food future, how would that look like?
So I would say that this has changed dramatically over the past 2.5 months, and probably has even changed this week. I hope that we move towards a food system that is first and foremost equitable, sustainable, and empathic. I don't think our food system currently has empathy built into it. And it sounds almost like a crazy idea in the US, where our food system is very based on the capitalist principles that underlie it. Profit is held as the highest form of success. And I think when we start implementing a food system that has different metrics for success, that have metrics built around waste, around measuring equity and sustainability, I think we'll have a more participatory system that actually gets people food in a way that makes them feel part of a community, as opposed to a cog in the system, which is all too frequently the case, particularly here in the US right now.
Yeah. Thank you. This is a very good summary of what I also wish for. And let's hope that there is a time when we won't even mention waste anymore, and it's designed out from our food system. I really would love that. Thank you so much for talking to me tonight, or like my night, your daytime. For the future, please follow our conversations. This conversation, if you have missed the beginning, will be available on our Instagram TV channel. And we will continue introducing other alumni over the next weeks. And please, even if you didn't have the chance to ask your questions now, just send it over in a direct message and we will make sure that either Zack gets it or we will answer it. And thank you so much. Please be conscious, be empathetic, and watch out for your community. Thank you, Zack. Have a lovely day.
Thanks, Julia. Have a great night out there.
Bye.